are not able to make it, um, they can see it. So, all right. So as we get started, let's open up the floor to questions. Any questions for me about the class or any of that stuff? Anything? All right. No questions. Chelsea, are you sure you don't have any questions?
Wait, are we allowed to email you specifically about the corrections on the midterm?
Yes. They're not. So
Okay.
let me be clear about that. They're not necessarily corrections. That's just my feedback. And if you want to set up a time, you can email me, or if it'd be easier just to talk through it, we can set up a one-on-one session on here to talk through that. I'm more than happy to give you feedback that way. If that works for you. Um,
Okay.
Perfectly fine to do that. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Okay. So let's get started then. Stadium. We're talking about this week's stadium financing and some other questions. More questions. What I recommend you do, I think I put it in the email, is wait until after this is over, and then go take notes. Change it up. Everyone should get a 10 out of 10. Hopefully, graduate students use your textbook and so should do so. But it's an interesting time right now. We think building stadiums, building all these other projects. I've talked about a lot in class, the $31 million that was used to build um, our stadium. But when we think about this from cities, uh, really, when you think stadium building, some problems that arise with cities. First, is it expansion, or is a new team being started, or are you trying to lure a team to there? So, what city what city recently lured a team to it? Actually, two in the NFL. Feel free to chime in.
Hello.
What city lured a team to it? Two of them. It's in California.
Los Angeles.
Thank you. Thank you for participating. Um, yeah, Los Angeles. So they got the Rams and the Chargers. If you haven't seen the new Rams logo, go check that out. It looks like a kindergarten drew it. But besides the fact, um, what they did, and LA won the team. Why did LA want a team? Why the NFL want a team in LA to begin with?
The size of the market.
Size of the market, media. How does the NFL make most of their money? Pay attention to the collective bargaining agreement stuff. Anybody? Anybody except for Derek want to chime in? Please feel free to. It's just like class. No one talks. Doesn't matter where we do it at. Um, so most of their money comes from TV. So if you're trying to expand, like I'm originally from Tampa, uh, Tampa Bay Rays came about, and that's MLB expansion. They added two new teams, Tampa Bay Rays being one of them, and it's a great opportunity for them to do that. So they had a stadium built there. One of the questions that comes about for cities is, does bringing a team in, does building the stadium truly enhance the local economy? Is this something that is going to help us overall? And you think right now Myrtle Beach, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans really want to renovate their stadium, probably to the tune of about $15 million. Do we, as Myrtle Beachians, or whatever you want to call ourselves, or countyers, or people that are in this local economy, Is there an extra $15 million lying around that we can just throw at the stadium? I don't know. That really not, because it's stretched pretty thin if you think about it. And I actually asked a county council member this question, and he goes, right now we're talking about parks and recreation and building new facilities or doing other stuff. He said that it's a guns and butter situation. If you go back to economics, you can either have guns, military support for safety, or you can have butter, natural goods, because that's what they have. As costs are increasing to get new police officers in, public safety, think about cities it's growing. Is this true? So I think for stadiums, there's also local substitution that occurs. So people can substitute one economic activity like going to a game for something else. This is something to truly think about in your papers. This substitution effect that's there. And some of you, a lot of you decided, hey, basketball is a great way to go. Well, you mentioned Wichita State is one of the schools that we talked about in there. Well, in Wichita, Kansas, there's literally nothing else to do over the winter than go to basketball. There's nothing to do. It's cold. Nobody wants to really be outside. Nobody wants to do anything, so we go watch basketball. In Myrtle Beach in the winter, there's plenty of things to do, right? There's plenty of stuff you can go do. Hell, I'll go golfing. I mean, 40 degrees outside, you can still hit the ball around. Or there's plenty of other things going on. So think about substitution. Why do we fund? Why is public funding used? Because we think that there's these positive externalities. And that's some benefit that you get other than the buyer and seller receiving the transaction. So that is, hey, we build this stadium and the Pelicans get a new stadium. The city of Myrtle Beach gets to call itself the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. They have that thing here. But then what else are people getting around it? This is why this is the one selling point that typically comes, because most teams will say, well, we're providing a public good. Think about this. We're doing good for the economy and people, and if we leave, people's social identities disappear. Think about the Chargers leaving San Diego. People's identities were stripped away, right? For some people's whole lives, all they've known is, hey, the San Diego Chargers, the Chargers, the Chargers, right? Think Oakland right now with the Raiders leaving. That's all people in Oakland know are the Raiders. And now they're going to be in Las Vegas, so there's different things that come about this. So positive externalities, it's that goodwill that's out there. People like this thing. It's public good, which right now in society, while sports might have some benefit. So here's the problem for owners with stadiums. Do they want to move or do they want to stay? Right? And you see this everywhere. What's the first thing an owner says when they don't get the funding for a stadium right away in the first round of negotiations?
They'll leave.
They'll leave. They'll up and leave. They will go, we'll do it. We saw this in Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Bucks owner threatened the county, whatever county Milwaukee sits in, I don't know, threatened to say, hey, we're going to, this is great, but we go to the Sooners. I'm going to take the Bucks somewhere else. And people are like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that to us, yada, yada, yada. It's happening right now in Tampa with the Rays, to where the owner's like, we don't want to leave, but, there could be opportunities. Well, here's this alternative schedule. We're going to play half the year in Canada, half the season in Canada, and the other half down here in Florida. So, but here's an option. We can have this. Sneak one. And then for owners, do we want to win or do we want to have a profit? And I put the Pittsburgh Pirates up here because the Pittsburgh Pirates are notorious for they'll have a really good team. They could win. The Pirates had talent and they could win multiple championships they wanted. But about halfway through the year, when those commodities they have that are the players be good, they trade them away because they want to cut their payroll down and make more of a profit. And people in Pittsburgh know it, but it's just one of the things that they do. So do I want to win? And what you'll find reading the book is that most teams or owners will claim that they don't make money every year. especially in baseball. Um, I think that's a lie. We saw this with the Florida Marlins. The Marlins wanted the new stadium built, and their CFO or whatever is in the meeting. I think it was 60 Minutes. He says they asked him like, "Oh, we don't make any money," and yada yada yada. And they said, "Well, can we see your books? Can we really take a look at that?" And he goes, "No." So if you don't think they're making money, there's a problem because these teams, their values are growing by doing nothing and being a part of the NFL, Major League Baseball, MLS, all these things. By being part of it, they are growing in value 4, 5, 10% annually just by doing nothing. Jerry Jones is making money by doing absolutely nothing. So life is really good for an owner because who was the owner of the Marlins? I forget his name, but he bought the team. Jeffrey Loria bought the team. I think it's Jeffrey Loria. Um, Bought the team for $150 million. He sold the team for $1.5 billion. He claimed he didn't make any money on the sale. I think he's lying, but um, that's just over 10 years. Over 10 years, his investment grew a sizable amount. So life is really good for an owner. Which if you can be an owner, go do it. Now let's talk about the labor market. This is where we all sit in. We all want to work in sports in some capacity, right? I assume, right? Aaliyah, you want to. Alberto, you want to play. Eric, you want to work in sports, right? Some capacity, recreation.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, everybody in here wants to do that. So when you think as non-athlete employees, which is where most of us all fall into in this, owners are cheap, and the sports industry, I might have mentioned before, the sports industry is what we call a sexy industry. Everybody wants to work in it. And because of that, you have a surplus of people that want to come work for you. I can pay you next to nothing. You're going to take it, or sometimes free, right? If you go try and get an internship in other areas, let's say an internship with I don't know, as an accountant for one of the big four industries or whatever your internship, you're going to be paid. These internships at Amazon were paid. Um, Internship with an NFL team, you're paid, but I made $1,000 a month when I worked for the Chicago Bears, which is absolutely ridiculous. So owners know these things, and they're very margin conscious on what they're doing because they want to make as much money as they can. And we've all worked for places, and we've asked the question of, well, I really use more people to do this because all of y'all have probably experienced this at some point. I know, Leah, you have with the Pelicans. You're asked to do 4 or 5 different things in one day when that could easily split up between 2 or 3 people. Well, what they're looking at is that marginal revenue and some product of labor. So what that's saying is how much additional revenue is generated from me bringing on this worker. Because if I'm going to bring them on, it's going to cost me, I don't know, $80 a day. Well, can I make $80 more dollars on top of this, or really $160 more dollars because of that person being here? I don't know. Could somebody in concessions generate $160 more dollars? Sure. If I had another line to process people through faster, absolutely. Could I do that as a parking attendant? Who knows? Maybe. So that's what we're looking at, and we're trying to build this out and staff it. It's very frustrating, to say the least, because you're trying to do it, which is why sports industry in general and works to get as much free labor as possible, and as I get away with it. So there's that. So always be aware of that when you're out there in the industry, because this will come up. Occurs in athletics departments all over the place. Can I get free labor? Can I not? Why athletics loves our program, because the amount of free labor we can produce for them. It's beneficial. We think athlete employees know. Usually most athletes are a part of some sort of union. and NFL, NFLPA just in the news for the collective bargaining agreement that got processed. The NBA PA, which just had a public service announcement on about coronavirus. Um, who else? NHL Players Association. All these unions are out there to help do that. Why do they do that? Because owners, yet again, are greedy or cheap. You're trying to do it. If LeBron James says something to the NBA, people are going to listen because it's LeBron James. If third stringer on the Clippers or on the Milwaukee Bucks says something, or the Indiana Pacers says something, no one's really going to care, right? So think through the power of that union to process what you're doing with athletes and labor. Um, what employers know is that somebody has this what we call reservation wage. And that's the least amount of money a player will accept because it's the next best offer, right? Think Dak Prescott and the Cowboys negotiation right now. What does that dollar figure look like? Is it $38 million? Is it $37 million? If Dak were to go on the open market, what could he get? And what's he willing to accept? That's something you have to know if you're trying to hire people, especially athletes in this realm. So, I think it's one of my favorite things, the salary cap. So, are y'all familiar with the salary cap at all and how it works or no?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So huh? So how the salary cap works, every year, well, I'm going to talk about the NFL here. The NFL gets this big pool of money that comes in. Out of that big pool of money, this collective bargaining agreement sets up how much of that money is supposed to go to the players and how much of that money goes to ownership, right? That's really all it's set up for, just this guiding thing. The salary cap is the maximum amount of money that a team can spend on players. Now, in the NFL, that money comes from the NFL and it's distributed down to teams evenly. Every team has the same salary cap. This is done right here for protecting owners from bidding against themselves for talent. If you think Jerry Jones won't spend $80 million on an athlete per year, you're crazy. If it means he can go get all the best talent in the league to be on his team, yes. Because what we know is that every player is it's not necessarily the coaching, but it's the players on your team. The talent's what wins games, not necessarily coaching. So if I can go get the best players, then I have a better chance to win. Salary cap helps maintain some sort of parity across the league, meaning at any given year, any team could win a championship. On any Sunday, any team could win a game. Right? The Dolphins beating the Patriots a couple years ago, and they're 34-point dogs in a game. Like, that's that's parity. That helps gambling, that helps everything else. So think about this for the grand scheme of things. The salary cap itself helps to structure that, help lay it out. If we think about this in comparison to Major League Baseball does not truly have a salary cap. Major League Baseball has a cap that's out there, but you can spend over it. For years, the New York Yankees did this, where they would spend over the salary cap, they paid the luxury tax. So if they spend $40 million over the cap, well, they pay a tax of like 40% or whatever to spend over that. George Steinbrenner would gladly do it as the owner of the Yankees because that means that he's got the best talent on his team, right? And we see this across the board in Major League Baseball. Your big market teams that have a lot of money and the way that it's set up, the big market teams are able to generate more wins and be successful. Look at it. Houston is a big market club. Houston's a huge market. LA, New York, Boston. I think so the bigger clubs, bigger franchises versus more TV revenue, local TV dollars. If you think about the difference also in how it's generated, the NFL, as far as generating money, brings money in through their TV dollars. We'll talk about the next slide. But they do that and centralized in their central office. In Major League Baseball, each team is able to go out and negotiate their own deals for television broadcast rights, which is why in the Southeast it's mainly the Atlanta Braves you see. In Florida's divvied up between the Rays and the Marlins and even the Braves. It's all across the country. So wherever you go, Fox Sports South, Fox Sports New England, the Yes Network, the Cubs are WGN, so the Cubs are able to do it. So different ways. Uh-huh. And then how do we share this revenue? Gets interesting. So some of the most, I updated the numbers over here on the right side of the slide. The old ones from the old CBA. This is the newest stuff that's in place. How the league gets their money, it's really three sources. You have league media, which is their television contracts with Fox, CBS, ESPN. I think so. So maybe Amazon is in there too for streaming, and DirecTV for NFL Sunday Ticket. That league media, that's a huge chunk of money. What the old collective bargaining agreement laid out was 45% of that is entitled to the players, 55% goes to the owners. In the new CBA, if you look to the right, 52% will go to the owners, 48% goes to the players, right? And then NFL Ventures, this is the NFL Network, some of their other properties they own, the same split of revenue. Where it gets really interesting here is local revenue. 6% goes to the owners because this is where owners can go out and sell sponsorships inside stadiums, can do stuff like parking, all that revenue that you pay when you go to a game, so parking services, concessions, that stays local to the owner, all this stuff. So local revenue is where it kind of gets finicky. All the tickets that are sold, all that money goes to the league and then is split back out in the local revenue category. So here's where selling tickets, paying for all the stuff comes in, and it divvies out to make it fair. If you see there on the right, 52% goes to the owners. They use that to run a team. So I think the salary cap for this season is $190 million, give or take a couple million. So that means that the owners are getting close to $200 million sent to them from the NFL. Says, here you go, thanks for your business. Here's your money. $200 million to run a team. It does not cost $200 million to run a team. I'll be upfront to say that. If you look at the biggest of the biggest in the way you compare it, look at Alabama, go look at their financials, go look at Clemson, go look at these really, really big programs, LSU, who run similar type things. Granted, they play slightly more games and travel more. You're looking maybe $50 million a year to run the team, run the operation. That's paying salaries, that's doing everything else. So if it costs them, let's just say $80 million, that means the owners are pulling in $120 million in profit. That's an interesting element to look at. If you look at the players, and that's where the players always want that added percentage to go up, because that's where, hey, well, the team has $190 million to spend. Out of that salary cap that's there, the team must spend 95% of that $190 million on those players. I mean, they don't have to spend it all. So if a team wants to save a little bit of money, they can lump off, I don't know, $7-8 million, sit off to the side, and that's not a bad thing to do. So it's just an interesting component that comes with what you have and what you're doing. We talk salary cap and it has elements. So it's just little bits of how the money flows in. Stadium financing in general, it's getting pricier and pricier as the day goes. Yeah. So any questions for me on this?
I have a question from the reading.
Uh-huh.
Could you further explain what a reservation wage is?
Reservation wage. So they put it on the slides too. The reservation wage, it's really how much are you willing to take? What's your bottom line? So if you have an offer in front of you for a salary or something along those lines, and I say, and I'm your agent, I go, Chelsea, here's this one for, I think your value is about $10 million a year. You're like, okay. And this team's paying you 8, and you're like, okay. You start testing the waters. I don't know. You might want to take 8 because really what's coming in, something happened, and it looks like it's only be 7.5. So take 8. What's your reservation wage? How low are you willing to go before you settle on some financial amount to roll with? All right.
Yeah,
Makes
thank
sense?
you. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Any other? What about the Olympics right now? What about that in Tokyo? How about that from a stadium construction? Do you guys see how much money that's costing?
No.
About $26 billion.
Oh my god.
So $26 billion that they postponed it until I think it is 2021 now. So at least this facility will still be used. But that's the biggest problem when you think about Olympics and facility development is the amount of money that's spent to bring these stadiums in and build some of this stuff, which is why you should watch it ultra close. I think is it 2024 it's in Los Angeles or 2028? I forget which one it is. But that's where they're looking at, hey, what facilities do we have? What's our current infrastructure? Do we have in place that can benefit us overall so that we don't have to spend so much to do it? It was a bid why Boston wanted it. Boston wanted to use it because they have so many universities up there with dorms and everything else, so it doesn't require a lot of added expense because they can come in and renovate dorms. Like you could think about if the Olympics came to Coastal, the small version of it, we already have housing. We can have an athlete village already, right? We don't have to build new stuff. I think where were the Winter Olympics at this past year, or in 2018? Do anybody remember? I forget.
Wasn't it in Pyeongchang?
Yeah, South Korea. Yeah. All the furniture, I mean, this part of it, all the furniture. So it's not just building accommodations and housing, but all the furniture was cardboard. So your bed frame was a cardboard bed frame. So when it's done, it could all be recycled. Um, Little things. I love going to Vancouver, Canada, and I didn't realize where the athlete village was until we were up there, and I looked at it, I was like, oh, those are all just new apartments now that people stay in. I'm like 10 years old, 15 years old, but those are all just apartments. So how do you repurpose those facilities to not be a waste? Brazil has really messed it up a couple times. And they built these facilities, like I think Brazil built a huge soccer stadium out in the middle of the rainforest. I don't think many people are going to go out there in the middle of the rainforest to watch a professional soccer match. But they built these big fancy stadiums, and they built it for 50,000 people, which is great I think they built it for 50,000 people for like 4 games. Well, then what do you do after you're done? They use the stadiums now as big parking lots for like buses and everything else. So there's a lot that's required for that that you have to think through. So facility development's big. Something you'll get, just watch the news, and that at the Rams. There's another one right now at their stadium in LA where they wanted to build it, and they built it, and initially it's like, oh, it'll be $2 billion and we're self-funding it. Now the price tag's up to $5 billion, and Stan Kroenke, the owner, goes, well, hey, players, you need to chip in a little bit and help pay for the stadium. That'd be like me going, hey, I'm building this great place for you, but y'all need to chip in. I think that just doesn't fly. So, yeah.
It's going on with the Clippers right now too. Steve Ballmer just bought the Forum so that he cleared way to build his stadium as well.
Yep. Is that going to be in Inglewood too?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they wanted to keep the Inglewood community wanted him to keep the forum for music still, so he's not destroying the forum, obviously, and like it's a big community thing with Inglewood.
Uh huh. That's interesting. And that's where you have some of these stadiums and arenas that have emotional appeal or emotional ties to a community in general. That it makes it harder for these communities to relinquish that. But also some are wising up. Like you are seeing a drastic decrease in public funding of stadiums being built, especially in California, which is why the Raiders left Oakland and moved to Las Vegas. Because Las Vegas and the state of Nevada goes, well, we'll give you this, and through hospitality taxes, they're paying, the state's contributing $750 million of the $1.5 billion for it. The other bit's coming from private dollars. I think 500 million is coming from the Davis family, and some others coming from a hotel person. So that they're trying to scrap that money together. Used to be back in the day that cities and municipalities and states would build the stadiums for you, which when you do that, as an owner, great, you give me the space, but you run into places like the Vet in Philly, where you had football and baseball played in the same arena. You have the Coliseum in Oakland. Because as a city, I want the most amount of games to be played in there to get the maximum benefit. Why do I build a football stadium if all you're going to play is 10 games there a year? Right? What are you doing for the other 352 days to make sure stuff is occurring in that space to get some positive economic benefit? Those are the questions you have to look at. So, but it's also important to consider too, like the NFL was all on board to have the Rams relocate and even the Chargers relocate to Los Angeles, because that means that their revenue potential just increased drastically, which means that the amount of money coming in, not just for players, but for the ownership increase as well. Same thing moving from Oakland to Las Vegas. That's a no-brainer. Like I'm bummed. Like I know we're missing sports right now, but I really miss the potential of the draft being in Las Vegas. That would have been a spectacle. Like I could just see like the Las Vegas like dancers come out with the big feather hats on, escorting players to the stage. That would be cool. That would be unique. It would be something that you normally don't see. So the epicenter, that having that stadium in Vegas, means a lot for the NFL, but also means a lot for the business of all of the other 31 teams that are in the league, right? Because if that team does well, then that means the ownership in Kansas City does well, and Tampa does well, and Miami's doing well. So what's good for you is good for everybody, right? So that's their approach that they take. So they're always trying to look through that individual basis. So, any other comments, questions, concerns? All right. So, as I said before, if you want to set up an individual time with me, talk about your paper, where you should go, just let me know. Shoot me an email. More than happy to set that up. We can do a video chat through here. I find that to be the easiest thing to do. I could even share your paper on the screen and we can talk about it. So there's lots of things with technology we can do. Do you guys like this platform for class?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I like the least
Yeah.
there's some interaction. You know, on mine I just see like flashing initials with like things, which is cool. So at least there's some interaction. So we'll keep doing that. And noon works for everybody across the board.
Yeah.
I know Derek, you're just hanging out in Arizona, right? Amen to that. So we'll do that, and but yeah, shoot me an email, um, or post it in the little chat room thing or whatever it is, and we're happy to meet anytime that works best for you guys. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good time.